You hear the phrase, snake oil salesman, and you know exactly what it means, right? A fast-talking huckster peddling worthless junk from the back of a wagon. It's become part of our American language for a fraud. But what if I told you the original snake oil, the one that started it all, might have actually worked? And the story of how it became America's most legendary scam involves Chinese railroad workers, a fake cowboy mastermind who put on one heck of a show, and a shocking government expose that changed how America protected itself. Forget the Wild West charlatan for just a moment. Our story really starts back in the 1800s, with the thousands of Chinese laborers brought here to build the massive transcontinental railroad. They faced brutal work, and for their aching joints, they brought a traditional remedy from home, oil from the Chinese water snake. Now, science tells us this oil was packed with anti-inflammatory omega-3s, maybe even more than salmon. They'd rub it on after a long day's work. Reportedly, some American co-workers tried it and were impressed. The word started to spread. But America back then was wide open. There were hardly any laws controlling medicines. Companies could bottle just about anything and make miracle claims. And they did. Patent medicines were everywhere. It was the perfect time for someone opportunistic, someone clever, to take the idea of this effective Chinese remedy and twist it into something purely American and profitable. Enter Clark Stanley. He crafted this whole persona, claimed he was a cowboy who learned ancient secrets from a Hopi medicine man out west. That was pure marketing BS. He knew Chinese water snake oil wouldn't grab the American public, especially with the prejudices of the time. So he rebranded it. Rattlesnakes. Now that was something Americans understood. Iconic, dangerous, from the Wild West. His big break came at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Imagine the scene. Clark Stanley, maybe decked out in cowboy gear, grabs a live rattlesnake in front of a huge crowd, dramatically slices it open, throws it into boiling water, and skims the fat off the top, bottling it right there. Clark Stanley's snake oil liniment. The crowd was mesmerized. He wasn't just selling a product, he was selling a performance, an American myth built right before their eyes. He became the self-proclaimed Rattlesnake King, and his name was suddenly everywhere. Stanley wasn't alone, though. He was part of a huge American cultural phenomenon, the traveling medicine show. Before radio and TV, especially out in rural areas, this was the big entertainment. These troops would roll into town with flashy wagons, musicians, magicians, comedians, sometimes even fake Indian ceremonies. Anything to draw a crowd. They weren't just there to sell, they were putting on a party. They'd get everyone happy, laughing, maybe amazed by some feat of strength or a trick shooter. Then the smooth-talking doctor, usually with no real medical training, would take the stage. Using fancy words, maybe even folks planted in the audience pretending they'd been miraculously cured, they'd pitch their miracle elixir that could supposedly fix everything. It was a blend of entertainment and clever, often deceptive salesmanship. But people were starting to get suspicious of all these miracle cures. Muckraking journalists, those investigative reporters of the day, like Samuel Hopkins Adams, started exposing what he called the Great American Fraud in popular magazines. They revealed the dangerous ingredients, the false advertising. At the same time, scientists like Dr. Harvey W. Wiley at the Department of Agriculture were proving that many foods and drugs were adulterated, sometimes even poisonous. His famous Poison Squad experiments grabbed headlines. Public outrage grew. Finally, in 1906, America fought back with the landmark Pure Food and Drug Act. For the first time, the federal government had real power to go after companies making false claims and selling mislabeled products. And guess who ended up in their sights? The Rattlesnake King himself, Clark Stanley. Federal agents seized a shipment of his famous liniment and sent it to the lab. The results were damning. There was absolutely no snake oil in it whatsoever. What was in it? Mostly cheap mineral oil, basically petroleum, maybe some beef fat, red pepper to create a warming tingle on the skin, and perhaps a whiff of turpentine or camphor. It was a formula designed to feel like it was doing something, using the cheapest ingredients possible. Even if he had used rattlesnake fat, science shows it doesn't have those beneficial omega-3s found in the Chinese water snake oil anyway. So Clark Stanley was hauled into court around 1917, charged with misbranding his product, lying about what was in it and what it could do. His punishment? A fine of just $20. Seems unbelievably small today, doesn't it? But the real punishment wasn't the money. Being officially labeled a fraud by the US government destroyed his reputation. The Rattlesnake King, stripped of his credibility, quickly faded from public view. But his legacy, it's huge. Thanks in large part to Clark Stanley's high-profile scam and downfall, the term snake oil salesman became forever embedded in our American language as the ultimate symbol for a charlatan, a huckster, anyone selling you a lie with a smile and a good story. His story, that mix of the cowboy myth, showmanship, and bold deception, really stuck. So the next time you hear snake oil salesman, remember Clark Stanley. Remember the real story behind the phrase, how a potentially useful remedy from halfway around the world got twisted into an all-American fraud by a master showman. It's a fascinating, cautionary piece of American history. It reminds us that the lure of the quick fix and the power of a convincing sales pitch are always out there. We still need to keep our eyes open and think critically, especially when something sounds too good to be true. Because even today, you might say, there's always someone trying to sell a new kind of snake oil.